Amigo, amiga de RockFM Motel, hoy tenemos invitado de lujo. Hoy está con nosotros Joseph Thomas, Joe Elliott Jr., cantante, músico, compositor y sobre todo vocalista de los Def Leppard. En nada, estarán de gira en una super gira junto con Mötley Crüe, con Joan Jett y con otras grandes bandas como Poison, por ejemplo. Pero hoy le tenemos aquí en Rock FM para contarnos su nuevo trabajo, sus últimas canciones y sobre todo esos 45 años de carrera que llevan Def Leppard encima de los escenarios y hoy más frescos que nunca aquí en Rock FM. Joe, welcome to Rock FM.
Thank you, pleasure. Glad to be here.
En este 2022 la banda ha cumplido 45 años y como decía, estáis más vivos y más frescos que nunca, ¿no?
It feels great. You know, the thing is, I think you do live in like suspended animation when you're in a rock band. We've been a band for 45 years, but I don't even feel that I'm 45 years old, but I'm long past being 45 years old. But it's such a good time period for the band right now because we're coming out of this pandemic that we didn't waste. You know, we wanted to do something positive while we were in lockdown, and we managed to 100% remotely record a brand new album.
Cool. En este mismo verano, en junio, comienza la super gira con Mötley Crüe, con Poison, con Joan Jett. ¿Para cuándo España y Europa?
I'm very excited about it. We all are. We haven't played a show since November 2019. So it's been about 2.5 years by the time we get out there since we'll have played together as a band. We've actually had longer breaks than that between Paramania and Hysteria, and between Hysteria and Adrenalize, the gaps were bigger, but still it'd be nice to get back out on the stage. And the ticket sales are actually better now than they were in 2020. So I think the whole world is ready to get back out there again. And yes, we're definitely bringing this tour to Europe next year, 2023.
Cool. El próximo 27 de mayo verá la luz vuestro nuevo disco Diamond Star a los 12º de estudio, 7 años desde el último disco homónimo que sacasteis en 2015. Conocemos el adelanto Kick, un auténtico petardazo. ¿Cómo se ha fraguado este disco, Joe?
It's an interesting story that's difficult to try and get down to a couple of minutes, but initially this is what happened. The day that lockdown kicked in March of 2020, the whole band were due to fly to my studio in Dublin, Ireland, and all flights are cancelled. Everybody's in lockdown. So we couldn't actually get together to do this recording. So me and Phil got on the phone and made a plan to do it remotely. We've done this in the past. We've dabbled with it. We've never done an entire album that way, but we knew how it worked. We had a very willing engineer producer in Ronan McHugh to do the hard work of gluing everything together. But essentially, it gave us this opportunity to stay at home rather than having everybody living at my house and work. And we've discovered in that first 30-minute phone call that between me and Phil alone, we had 7 songs. And throughout the recording process, we just kept getting longer and longer as lockdown kept getting stretched more. And then we realized that the tour was going to be cancelled. We just kept going. And Sav brought 2 songs in. Me and Phil wrote 5 songs, literally by sending MP3s to each other over the internet. And we just wrote wherever we were, and we recorded wherever we were, but sent all the information, all the files, all the performances to Ronan, who glued it all together in his studio. So I'll tell you this much, it was the most fun we've ever had making an album. Wow. I don't think we'll ever do a traditional album again. We had way much more fun where everybody'd been able to stay at home and take their dog for a walk when they're not working, or hang out with their kids, or just do family stuff. We never get to do this because we're always on the road. So it was a really nice break for us, and we turned a very negative situation into a very positive situation.
Es difícil componer entre Irlanda, Estados Unidos, Inglaterra, donde vivís cada uno, cada miembro de la banda. ¿Tenéis material nuevo grabado ya para siguientes álbumes? ¿Vais a seguir con esta producción o con esta forma de grabar en álbumes siguientes?
Okay, yes, we were on 3 different time zones and in 3 different countries. Phil was in California, Vivian was on the East Coast of America, Sav was in England, and I was in Ireland. It was a lot easier than you'd think it really wasn't that difficult. It was no more difficult than what we're doing now. Thank goodness for, technology, because the technology is what allowed us to be able to do this. As regarding new material, well, we just delivered 15 new songs, so I think that's pretty good for now.
Absolutely.
But we did actually have a 16th song on the go, but we had to stop because once we'd signed the record deal with Universal, they then told us, look, we need the album because there's an 8-month delay on vinyl. So if you want to put the album out in May, you've got to deliver it last September. And we were like, oh, okay, then we'll just leave it as a 15-song album. And then we've got this extra song, and we've got a couple of things bubbling over. So we're going to keep working this way because it's a lot easier than having to book flights for everybody, get everybody to my place, or me go to theirs. First week, everybody's jet-lagged. This way, you're just in your own studio working whenever you want. You're not rushing. There's no delivery date. There's no reason to have to rush anything. You just work it like an artist rather than like as a consumer. That's like having to rush things out for people. It's much more fun working this way. We'll always, of course, get together to perform. I don't think we're going to be doing a digital gig anytime soon. Having said that, we did do Driving Saturday for Mike Garson's David Bowie tribute in January, and that was all done remotely. But we wouldn't do an entire gig. We are looking forward to actually getting together and, touching and feeling the real world again. It's going to be fun.
Últimamente muchas bandas de rock se están subiendo al carro de vender sus canciones, su catálogo a grandes empresas. Sois una de esas últimas bandas de rock que ha vendido esos derechos. ¿Crees que la propiedad intelectual y compositiva de esas canciones no deben pertenecer a sus músicos, a sus artistas, a la gente que la ha compuesto, como tú con este caso de Def Leppard?
Yeah, they do. They should. And we do own our own songs. We haven't sold all the rights to our publishing at all. We still maintain control and ownership of our publishing. We've renegotiated our deal with our original publishing company. We've currently got a very healthy relationship with both Sony Records, who are our current publishing company, and Primary Wave, who we've got a long-standing deal with. The point of the deal that we did was to protect the music from being used in places that we don't want it used. So we retain ownership. Yeah, we've negotiated a deal, and you do get paid for publishing. It's a fact. You either get paid a lump sum now, or you get paid in dribs and drabs over the years. We've negotiated the way that we get paid. That's all we've done. So it's more about protecting our legacy than making a massive amount of money. But I'm all for it. If Bob Dylan wants to sell his music, or Springsteen wants to sell his music for $500 million and buy a nice big boat, giddy up to him, But we want to be able to say no if somebody wants to put one of our songs in a soap powder advert, or something like that, unless we really think it's a good campaign. We still have 100% control over the yes or the no of where our music gets used, whether it be movies, TV shows, or advertising. So we will see our songs used in movies. I just watched an episode of Cobra Kai last night, and Switch 625 was the sign-off music at the end of the episode, which is fantastic to watch. So it's all a case of putting it in the right places. It's all about protecting the legacy.
Oye, Joe, ¿nunca le habéis dicho a Phil Cohen que se ponga una camiseta encima del escenario después de tantos años con el torso desnudo?
Well, no, because he's always smothered in oil, and that oil keeps him warm, In fairness, Phil wore a shirt and a jacket for both the videos that we've shot. We've shot 2 videos. We shot a video for Kick, and we've shot a video for the follow-up single. So we have got together for a week or two over the last month, doing all the promo for the album, where we needed to be together in the one place in London. And he was actually wearing a shirt the entire time. So, but I've got a feeling that when we get on stage in summer and it's hot in those stadiums, that shirt might last like one song.
Sois una banda que hace poco abristeis vuestro propio museo virtual. Me parece una idea totalmente original e innovadora, ¿no? ¿Cómo está yendo durante un poco más de un año ese museo virtual de Def Leppard?
Great. It was a bit of a slow start because of the pandemic. I'm the archivist in the band, right? Mm-hmm. And everything's at my house. And nobody could travel to my house to kind of go through it all and photograph it and document it and all that stuff. So it got off to a bit of a slow start. We had some Steve Clark stuff. We had a few little bits and bobs here and there. But now, after the lockdown was lifted, they all came to my house with cameras and scanners and all this crazy. It looked like the International Space Station had landed in my house. And they stayed for 5 or 6 days and went away with 3,500 photographs of my stuff. And they got through maybe a quarter of it. So there's a lot more to be seen. But the great thing about this museum, with it being digital, is we can keep adding rooms to it. So it's going to get bigger and bigger. And it's going to probably be bigger than the British Museum by the time it's finished. The one in London that's the size of Buckingham Palace. This will digitally be the same size. There's still thousands upon thousands of things to go up, but it's starting looking really good. And I agree with you. I think it is a great idea. There's only a handful of bands that I'm aware of are doing it at the moment. Rush have got one, Metallica, ourselves. I know there's a few other bands thinking about doing it. But it's a great place for people to see the history of the band in their own home without having to leave. It's very similar to the way we made the album. They get the luxury of sitting at home with their laptop and a cup of tea, going through all the stuff that we've spent 45 years collecting. They don't have to jump on an aeroplane and fly to a building and wander around it and pay to get in. They can just go straight into their laptop, click on the vault, defleppardvault.com, and boom, you're in. It's a great idea.
Beautiful. Beautiful, yeah. ¿Recuerdas aquel pequeño susto en el avión que comprasteis como avión propiedad de Def Leppard de la banda y que había sido de Elvis?
Yeah, of course. Things like that you don't forget. You know, the negative stuff's hard to lose. If we got 20 reviews for the new album and 19 of them were great and one of them was crap, that's the one we'd remember. That's the way. But yeah, when you're in an airplane it was the only plane that Elvis actually physically flew, sat in the pilot seat, and it goes whoosh, in 1.5 seconds, drops 1,500 feet, and everything takes off like you're in space. It's pretty freaky, but 2 minutes later, it's all back to normal again, and you move on. You know, I mean, there's plenty of other things that I remember that are as freaky as that. Even you mentioned Elvis. My first ever performance on stage was miming The Wonder of You by Elvis Presley in the school play. I was 11 years old. So it must be an Elvis thing, you know. Who knows?
¿Cuál recuerdas como uno de los mejores momentos con la banda y uno de los más embarazosos o uno de los peores momentos con Def Leppard? Quizás ese momento en la gira del 79 que estabais con AC/DC y se te rompió el pantalón y tuviste que amarrártelo en medio del concierto y no moverte mucho para que no se te viera el culo.
Actually, it wasn't with AC/DC, and they weren't jeans. It was black leather, black plastic leather pants. They weren't leather. They looked like leather, but I couldn't afford leather then. They were plastic, and they split. And it didn't really matter because I never turned round. I just faced the front all the time because it was the split at the back. No, that wasn't too embarrassing. It was just annoying. One of the greatest memories, really, was the Freddie Mercury gig, the Freddie Mercury tribute show in April the 20th, 1992 at Wembley Stadium. And it wasn't a Def Leppard song. It was the fact that myself and Phil Collin were stood either side of Brian May singing the backing vocals to All the Young Dudes, which just happens to be my favorite ever song. And as I'm looking down the line, I'm seeing the remaining members of Queen with Ian Hunter, Mick Ronson and David Bowie. And I'm singing backing vocals on this song thinking, well, this is the best musical 4 minutes of my life by a long way. But the other great moment was when we played Don Valley Stadium in Sheffield in 1993 on the Adrenalize tour. It was a new stadium built in Sheffield, 45,000 people. It was our hometown. It was the middle of summer, which there was no summer that year. There was only 2 days of summer, and one of them was our gig.
Wow.
Beautiful sunshine, nice warm day. All our families in the crowd, parents, brothers, sisters, dogs, whatever, friends we went to school with. And I remember walking out on stage, and it was just maybe 15 years since we formed. And I remember thinking and looking out going, we played gigs in this town in front of 11 people 15 years ago. Now there's 45,000. I think we can do this as long as we want to from here on in. It was a real weird moment. You know, they always say that your life flashes in front of your eyes when you're about to die. My career flashed in front of my eyes at that moment. And I went, we're in a really good place right now. And, you know, it was the 90s, which was not a great place for Def Leppard later on. But we got through it. It was just like turbulence. Sooner or later, your airplane comes out of turbulence and it comes out into smooth blue skies and everything's great.
Yes.
That's where we are right now. But that's when I remember thinking, this is a good place to be. We've come a long way in that 15 years.
Creo que tuviste mucho que ver en el nombre de la banda. ¿Cómo pasasteis de llamaros Atomic Mass a finalmente Def Leppard? Tú tuviste mucho que ver, ¿no?
The band was never actually called Atomic Mass. The band was born out of members of Atomic Mass, which happened to be Tony Kenning and Rick Savage. Even Pete Willis, who was our first guitar player, wasn't in Atomic Mass. But he took me to go and see Atomic Mass play about, I don't know, 6 weeks or so before we got together as a band. When I bumped into Pete Willis one night on my way home from work and said, hey, Pete, you want to get a band together? And he said, not kind of got one. We're looking for a singer. And I just blurted out, I'll do it. He went, okay. They all came around to my mom and dad's house and up in my bedroom, really impressed with my really pretty cool record collection at the time for a 17-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid. And we just got talking about getting a band together. And then the question went to, well, what we're going to call ourselves, you know? And Atomic Mass was never on the table as a name for the band. Pete wanted to call the band Accuracy. And I actually do remember going, well, that's crap. And which shocked him a bit. And I think, you know, it kind of led to who I am. Like, I kind of say things as they are on the spot and then maybe apologize afterwards. But I just said, I think that's just rubbish. And Pete went, well, what do you think's better then? And I said, how about Def Leppard? And I pointed at this poster that I'd done at school. And Tony and Sav thought he sounded good. It didn't look really well because it was spelled correctly. And it was Tony Kenning who suggested that we spelled it like Led Zeppelin. But we didn't even realize it looked like Led Zeppelin because we'd written it out in big letters. And he just crossed the A out with a, you know, put a line to it and then put a stick down the O in Leopard to turn into a P. And only when we wrote it out, maybe 6 weeks later, well, God, it looks like Led Zeppelin. By then we were stuck with it. We liked it. And we phonetically spelt it the way it sounded. And it looked good. So we were fine with it by then, you know.
Okay, Joe, last question. Siempre se hablan de bandas legendarias contra bandas nobles o, bueno, esa dicotomía que hay entre los jóvenes promesas y las bandas que ya sois totalmente un referente. Si tuvieras que quedarte con una banda de ahora o aconsejarnos alguna banda de ahora, ¿cuál sería?
Tricky one. I live under a rock. And I only peer my head up to do stuff like this every now and again. New bands, it'll be 10 years old now. The Struts are my favorite new band, the favorite current new band. I kind of tend to listen to new music, not necessarily by new bands, you know. I just listen to the new Ghost album. They're not new. They've been around since 2006. So I don't really know that many new bands, to be quite honest. I still consider the Struts a new band, and they've got like 4 albums out now, and they've been around longer than the Beatles have been together, you know. So, yeah, I'm not really the greatest person to ask about new bands. If we do festivals, that's where you're more likely to catch a new band because you can stand on the side of the stage and watch them and then check out who they are, go online, listen to some of their songs, you know. Tell you what I do like, it was relatively new, is a 3-piece female band from Mexico called The Warning. They opened for us in Mexico in 2017 or 18, and they're amazing. They're really young, well, they were like 16, 17 and 18 years old, and they're sisters, and they make an incredible noise, really worth checking out. That's relatively new, I suppose. But other than that, I'm sticking with the Struts.
Great. Joe Elliott, thank you for coming to Rock FM. It's a really pleasure for us. This is your home.
Thank you.
It's a really pleasure, really.
My pleasure. Thanks, gentlemen. Been a real honor, and can't wait to see you in 2023 on tour. It's going to be big, big, big.